U.S. President Donald Trump has warned countries against doing business with Iran. Trump tweeted that anyone doing business with Islamic Republic will not be doing business with Washington. He described the latest sanctions as the most biting embargoes ever imposed. He added that the restrictions will be ratcheted up in November. The U.S. president made the comments hours after reimposing the first round of sanctions on Iran, which were lifted following the 2015 nuclear deal. Russia has expressed deep disappointment over the move. Moscow says it will do anything necessary to save the historic accord. The European Union has also criticized the snapback of the sanctions. Jason Unruhe is a political commentator who joins us from Ontario. You have what Donald Trump has said, one of the most severe sanctions ever to be imposed on Iran, this particular round. Do you think that he believes that by doing this that Iran will come to the negotiating table?
I think that he certainly thinks so. I don't see that there's really much other reason to carry out these kind of sanctions unless it's just to attempt to destabilize Iran in general, to try to force a regime change type scenario. But these sanctions are not likely to directly cause something like that to happen. I think that there's a very good chance that the U.S. is trying to make Iran come to the negotiating table, which has already been there the entire time, which was already open and had already been settled with the previous JCPOA agreement. It was not necessary to do this at all whatsoever. It's only happening because the U.S. wants to change the terms of the agreement, possibly to curb the Iran missile program, to possibly make other changes that would be beneficial to the U.S. But it seems like in this case that the U.S. is just aggravating many of its neighbors. The European Union has begun to enact the blocking statute, which would protect many European businesses who would continue to do business inside of Iran, to try to protect them from any damage that the U.S. might want to do to them. And many European businesses have already pulled out of fear of what the U.S. could possibly do to them. The blocking statute still needs to be enacted. It still needs to be updated to deal with the nuclear sanctions, which could take some time. So I think that overall this is going to have a negative effect on Iran, and the sanctions always do. If they didn't, then nobody would use them. But I think it is frankly fairly clear that the U.S. is trying to force a renegotiation of an agreement that was perfectly fine to begin with by placing these sanctions on Iran.
What if these sanctions don't work? What will happen next?
I think that these sanctions might escalate to an even greater degree, as the U.S. has already threatened to cut Iranian oil off of the market, which would have an absolutely devastating effect to the country, and questionable how Iran could economically survive such an act. But I think that since there has always been an attempt in one form or another towards regime change inside the country, I think that we could possibly be looking at more U.S. interference inside the country, possibly through the use of the MEK and other such organizations. But I think that for now the U.S. is going to try to see if sanctions can possibly force out of Iran what they want, and that they could possibly escalate to something in the future. I mean, the U.S. has demonstrated that they're willing to go into outright mass murder to get what they want. They were willing to kill 1.5 million people in Afghanistan. They were really willing to kill 1.5 million inside of Iraq, all of it for, frankly, for imperialist plunder. But Iran is a very different creature from both Afghanistan and Iraq. They have far more capacity to defend themselves. They have a lot more political power than the previously two mentioned countries. But I think that there would definitely be some kind of escalation, possibly something more physical than just sanctions, if Iran did decide to rebuke Washington's attempts to rewrite an agreement that was already agreed to.
Thank you very much for that. Jason Unruhe.